I got this Lego Technic set primarily for the parts, and also it's got these really big wheels, and I used those to build some tractors for the kids, and they really liked those. But the kids knew that the set was for a crane and they really wanted to see it built. And so I told them, well, I need those wheels, and they were more than willing to give those up to see the crane built, and they were excited about it even when it was just the base. I didn't really want to spend all that time building it, so I kind of stripped it down a little bit. I only built the bare essentials. I didn't bother building the stabilizer legs because apparently those aren't that good either. Didn't build the engine, didn't put any trim on it. Basically just enough so it could be played with and lift things. Now, having watched videos of it online, I knew that this boom would extend very slowly. So I switched these gears in here to be 1-to-1, which makes it extend a little bit faster. And the boom tilt up and down is also very slow. So I changed the gear ratio for that, although that was very difficult. Because those gears, I was able to barely get at these gears in here still after I put it together, and change that so it's 1-to-1 instead of a reduction on there. Really, I should change some of the gearing in here to change that, but these parts are all so darned interlocked, it's just about impossible to make changes to the inside of this model. Once you put something together, and if the instructions call for 2 sub-assemblies to go together, after that it's just a matter of adding so many more pieces to interlock everything, which does make for a very solid sort of model, but it makes it much less of a do-it-yourself kind of model. In fact, to design something like this, you can't do that by just building it. You pretty much have to design it in CAD, because if you were to build it and then, oh, let's change this thing in here, well, it's so difficult to tear this apart to make one change. You pretty much have to plan it ahead, design it on a computer, where you can change the part on the inside without having to tear everything apart every time. I also made it swivel a bit faster. And I did that. I actually had to add another gear on the bottom here, because to change the gears on the inside here, again, it's just so hard to get at anything. So down here, this shaft comes back here and actually coupled to those gears here. And I just added this little pinion on here to engage with a gear that was nearby, and then that deflected down sometimes, so I added this little bar to keep that from ratcheting, and that did the job without tearing apart the whole thing. Because once you tear this partially apart, you can't use the instructions anymore, because you're at a point that the instructions don't cover. So if you start tearing parts of it apart, getting it back together the right way is extremely difficult. It's almost like you'd have to record your video of it doing it and then play that in reverse to get it back together. And since I didn't have the stabilizer legs, I managed to kludge it down here. These 2 U-joints basically take this, that goes to the stabilizers, and there's a pinion that engages one of the differentials, and those are actually coupled together with each other already through a very complicated gear train, kind of inefficient. And now this thing can drive. Whoops. But it has no torque at all. Now, changing the gear ratios does require more power, and I just used the bigger motor from the bucket wheel excavator set, and this is all not according to plans, nor is the top here. I didn't bother with the complicated double string thing, although that would increase the lifting power a little bit. I figured this was simple enough because the kids would want to play with it, and I didn't want as many strings to get tangled. And instead of the prefab house pieces, I had enough pieces left over to build this little bridge, which is more fun to build. In fact, because I didn't put any trim on there, I have actually a great deal of parts left over, which is great for adding different things onto here. And of course, I like to play around with it a little bit too.